President Adama Barrow delivers his 2022 State of the Nation's address with a renewed commitment to provide a new constitution. South Sudan citizens are calling for the swift implementation of the 2018 peace agreement to enhance stability in the country. And the Gambia Transport Union suspends sit-down strike after reaching an agreement with the Ministry of Transport. Well, this and more coming your way on The World Today. Hello, this is Eyeafrica TV and you are watching the World Today News Bulletin coming to you live from our studios in Banjul. Many thanks for joining us. I am Amadou Kante and now the news in detail, and we begin with the presidency because in his statement of the nation's address before the National Assembly on Thursday, President Adama Barrow renewed his government's determinations to bring in a new constitution, announcing that he has already tasked the Ministry of Justice to prepare a draft. The country spent over $100 million to a draft new constitution following the fall of the former dictator Yahya Jammeh's regime, but it failed to come into existence after the majority of the lawmakers at the National Assembly voted against it. Mafuji Sise has the details in this report.
President Adama Barrow, with the backing of the majority of the National Assembly members, managed to bury the draft constitution which attracted the attention of both local and international attention, calling him to revive the draft constitution. This did not materialize despite 116 million taxpayers' money being dropped into the waste bin.
As the constitution remains a top priority, my government is determined to oversee the crafting of a new constitution for the Gambia. Therefore, the Ministry of Justice will resume work towards tabling a draft constitution before this August Assembly. As part of its mandate, the Ministry will continue leading the review and harmonization of existing legislation with particular focus on laws that suppress freedoms and rights. For now, bills on criminal justice reform and mutual legal assistance are before this Assembly. I hope they will be dealt with eventually.
The tiny West African nation has been regarded as the smiling coast of Africa since its first republic under Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara, with high regard for rule of law and respect for human rights regulations, but it turns into a cry coast with the former leader Yahya Jammeh accused of committing gross crimes against humanity. The third administration under the leadership of President Adama Barrow reincarnated the rule of law and democracy and established the first ever Human Rights Commission, whose role is to watch the human rights situation of the country. President Barrow also pledged that his government will soon build the human rights quotas.
Mr. Speaker, with 3 years of existence, the NHRC proved to be fully compliant with the Paris principles. As a result, the Global Alliance of National Human Rights Institutions granted it A status. To the credit of government and the Commission, the African Commission on Human and People's Rights also granted it affiliated status. Thus, it can share submission with them on human rights issues within the country. We will support its attainment of first-class accreditation status. The Ministry is committed to the construction of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights headquarters as part of government's contribution towards hosting the Secretariat. Its purpose is to transform the Gambia into the capital of human rights promotion.
Rights bodies such as African Center for Human and People's Rights and African Human Rights Studies. Gambian and international human rights defenders had firmly stood against Jammeh's leadership, which eventually led to the citizens' decision to vote him out in the December 2016 election, which forced him into exile in Malabo, Equatorial Guinea. Mafuji Sise, Eyeafrica News.
Next to South Sudan we go, where the implementation of the country's 2010 peace deal remains a concern in some quarters, despite citizens relatively enjoying peace in different parts of the country, including the capital, Juba. Now, after experiencing years of conflict, some are calling for the implementation of the peace deal for the maintenance of stability. cognizance of the prevailing economic hardship, the government said it is working on plans to adjust salary for the civil servants, especially the security sector. Let's have more details of that in this report.
Many in South Sudan's capital, Juba, have enjoyed a relatively normal life ever since a peace deal was agreed upon in 2018, bringing to an end a 5-year civil war that the United Nations says left 400,000 people dead. The deal is entering its 5th year, but not all parts of the country are peaceful. The UN's mission in South Sudan is reporting an increase in cases of violence at the local government level.
I want the peace deal to be implemented so that my children can study, they can build the country. I lost my husband during the war. I don't want another war. It's President Kiir and his vice, Riek Machar, who should work together and ensure that total peace returns to this country.
I pray to God to bring peace to South Sudan. When we got independence, we became one. We were so happy. Why are we fighting so-and-so from this place and so-and-so is from that place? We need peace.
Implementation of the peace agreement is slower than many here had hoped for. The unification of the various armed forces that are fighting each other is not yet complete. The unity government now says it wants to stay in office until 2025 to carry out the remaining parts of the agreement. South Sudan's unity government is now tasked with ensuring that security is stabilized, electoral laws are amended, and the country is prepared for elections within the next 2 years. But civic education is yet to begin. More than 4 million South Sudanese people are still refugees in neighboring countries. Inflation is at an all-time high. The economy is in ruins and poverty is crippling. The highest paid civil servant salary is just below $20 a month. The government says it is working on readjusting salaries, including that of armed forces.
This, of course, is a big budget and it requires a lot of resources. So it's one of the reasons why it was passed to the economic cluster to find out the source of funding this amount and the new forces that are coming in.
Some armed groups are not part of the current process and are continuing to fight the unity government. The government is promising to engage such groups through dialogue. For many South Sudanese people, the hope is that there will be no return to war again.
And from the report there in South Sudan, now to the eastern part of the continent, because Uganda is witnessing a significant increase in infrastructure destruction thanks to the lucrative scrap metal business in the East African nation. Despite being a profit-making venue for many Ugandans, some metal dealers are cautious of the kind of products they buy from customers. The country's Energy and Mineral Development Ministry had initiated a total ban on the metal scrap business due to the rampant vandalism of infrastructures in the country. Here's more details of that in this report.
Taking stock of the pileup, Habat Kagwa has been in the scrap business for 2 decades now. He says it is lucrative.
Metal scrap is really ferrous.
Scrap is a large thing. We deal in what we call the ferrous and non-ferrous scrap. People that do not understand scrap think it's a bad business.
Metals, iron bars, and even old car batteries make for much of the piles here. This is one of the many scrap metal collection centers in downtown Kampala. The dealer says he receives as much as 1,500 kilograms of scrap metal at this yard almost every day, but other collection centers receive a lot more. Whether it is a single metal plate or a sackload of steel. But the collection centers are now cautious about what they take in.
The responsibility is on whoever is buying the scrap to scrutinize what they're buying, to know that they are buying something that is not illegal.
Scrap metal theft has become an urgently pressing issue. Government agencies say it is their power, road and rail infrastructure that have vandalized the most.
We have a section in Busoga region, yeah? That is where most of the vandalism started or took place. We have an entire right of way that was taken and sold to metal dealers in that region. You also know that the Kasese line is no longer there. That was uprooted. The entire line stretched from Kampala to Kasese was taken by people who thought that they could do whatever they want.
Authorities say putting up laws will help regulate the sector.
We wish our government to come and we make some acts in the scrap sector so that people are well guarded, people have boundaries where they cannot reach, because we have a sector which has no act.
The Energy and Mineral Development Ministry has previously called for a total ban on the metal scrap business across the country. That, if it happens, is likely to leave Habatka Guan many of these young men out of work, but probably with critical infrastructure in place.
And that report is coming from the Ugandan capital, Kampala. And of course, just to remind you, you're watching the World Today News Bulletin. And from the report here, we now take a break and come back shortly. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
As part of government's commitment towards universal health coverage and also digitize the civil registration and vital statistics systems in the country, the Ministry of Health and partners will embark on a mass birth registration campaign and enrollment for the National Health Insurance Scheme effective August 1st, 2022. Every individual born in the Gambia or by Gambian parents and residents of the Gambia are eligible to register during this important national exercise by providing the following documents: birth certificate, national ID card or passport, driver's license, voter's card, residence permit, vet certificate of parent, infant welfare card, alcalo attestation. Rush now to register and encourage your family and friends to do so during this important campaign. For any information, call 1025. This campaign is supported by the government of the Gambia and partners.
Welcome back, and this is Eyeafrica TV, and you are watching the World Today News Bulletin coming to you live from our studios in Banjul. And once again, many thanks for joining us. And let's now look at the rest of the stories, and let's return to the President's State of the Nation's address earlier on today, because the increase in maternal mortality in the Gambia has been a major issue of discussion and concern over the past 5 years. Lack of proper health care delivery is a concern to Gambians, with high cost of medication coupled with the economic hardship of the country. However, the president said key health indicators, including maternal mortality, have declined, among others. Let's have more details of that in this report by Yahya Jammeh.
Healthcare delivery is a major challenge in the Gambia, with little or no drugs available in public hospitals except for prescriptions that one should buy at pharmacies. The country's health system has been slammed by many factors due to low service delivery and lack of drugs unless one gets a sophisticated pharmacy. The frequent increase in maternal mortality is among the most worrying health issues in the Gambia. Reports indicated that levels of maternal mortality in the Gambia is unacceptably high and are ranked among the highest in Africa, estimated at 1,050 per 100,000 live births, and are higher in rural than in urban areas.
Key health indicators have improved notably. For example, maternal and child mortality has declined. Skilled birth attendance, postnatal care, and nutrition over the last 5 years. My government successfully expanded and developed healthcare services to improve infrastructure, personnel, and supplies on a reformed health financing landscape.
Even though the planned establishment of a national health scheme is yet to be implemented, the Gambian leader boasted of its creation that is set to provide quality healthcare delivery.
A major achievement of my administration is the introduction of the Gambia National Health Insurance Scheme. The act to establish the scheme became effective in November 2021 to particularly benefit the poor and the vulnerable, while serving as a social safety net.
Like most developing countries, preventable and treatable diseases like malaria, respiratory infections, diarrhea disease, malnutrition, and neonatal sepsis are likely responsible for childhood mortality and mobility in the Gambia. Over the past years, millions, including aid and grants, have been pumped into the health system for better healthcare delivery. However, the latter remains the opposite of the current situation in the health system, compared to the frustrating living conditions of Gambians struggling to put food on their tables. Reporting for Eyeafrica News, I am Mariama Cham.
Away from home, Tunisia's tourism industry has registered a significant recovery from the adverse effects of the COVID-19 global pandemic after years of struggle. Despite the increased revenue collection in the tourism sector, the Tunisian government has put in place new strategies to further boost tourist arrivals during the 2022 and 2024 periods. Now, breakthroughs in the artistic sector have also welcomed the positive development, saying they are expecting a blustering season. Let's have more details of that in this report.
Tunisian Tourism and Handicrafts Minister said that tourism revenues have risen by 82% compared to 2021 to reach $876 million in the second week of September. Despite the increased revenues, the gap in tourism receipts is estimated at 28% lower compared to 2019.
The tourism recovery in Tunisia is underway. We are still using 2019 as a reference because it was the peak season with 9.4 million tourists. It is also the last tourist season before the onset of the pandemic, which paralyzed this vital sector. Our objective is to resume a normal activity and to record a better performance in terms of revenue and visiting tourists.
The minister added that the government has put in place a new strategy for the revival of tourism during the 2022-2024 period.
Our strategy is based on improving and diversifying the tourist offer in the short term. We are restructuring the sector to guarantee the conditions of a solid recovery in the midterm and innovating in order to seize the opportunities which arise in the long term.
Authorities are also promoting the handicraft sector, which employs over 350,000 professionals. The volume of exports of Tunisian handicrafts reached around $30 million by the end of August 2022, increasing by 50% compared to 2021.
We are happy that the craft sector is back and exports are on the rise after more than 2 years of hardships due to the pandemic. Despite the high cost of raw materials, we are optimistic about the future. When the tourism activity resumes, all stakeholders will benefit from this recovery.
Authorities say 29 cruises arrived in Tunisia in the first 8 months of 2022, with 29,000 tourists on board. 14 other cruises are scheduled by the end of December, which will bring the number of cruises to 43 for the 2022 season.
The activity of cruise ships in Tunisia was interrupted for more than 7 years due to insecurity and terror threats in the North African country. Now that the security and health situations are improving, Tunisia aims to attract 6 million tourists by the end of this year.
And from the reporter in Tunisia, and let's end this news edition with some positive news for the Gambian public, especially the commuters of businesses, because after 4 days of their sit-down strike, the Gambia Transport Union has ended its protest thanks to the intervention of the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, who facilitated a dialogue between the General Transport Union and the Minister of Transport, Works and Infrastructure. Most of the commercial drivers under the Transport Union were not plying the roads since Monday, 12 September 2022, due to the high rise in fuel pump prices, the high toll fees at the Senegambia Bridge, too many police checkpoints, and expensive mandatory fines. Now, during the past days of this strike, the movement of goods and services were disrupted, and commuters were also struggling to move from one destination to another, leaving many worried as to when this strike would end. And we attempted to speak to the president of the Gambia Transport Union, but apparently we could not hold him on the line. But we will apparently, also as I say, we would endeavor to do that. We'll keep trying him, but hopefully we'll discuss more on that on our tomorrow's Good Morning Africa program. And with that, we eventually bring this news edition to an end. But for more details on this and other stories, as always, as ever, you can visit on our website on Eyeafrica.tv. But for now, many thanks for the pleasure of your company. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and bye for now.